Hello, ID60. So we are back with part two. This time we're talking about demographics for staging and how you want to research and target those. So a lot of the same things you might hear apply as our residential programming, but we're looking at it from a broader perspective. So let's go. So module goal, and I put a quote here because I think it applies. Staging that tries to appeal to everyone usually connects with no one, which is really different from what I've been saying in all the other lectures, right? We've been saying keep it neutral, keep it sort of generic, keep it beige, keep it gray, keep it, and then when we got into the sort of accessorizing and staging part and the little details is where we started to add some story, some life, some feeling. And so those are things that are smaller in scope that now you're trying to use to connect with whoever your buyer is. So it's correct that the space, the architectural space itself, should remain pretty neutral, sort of like a canvas. And then the little things that you vignette in are the things that are going to want to connect to your buyer. So we have a few topics. So we're going to start with why targeting a demographic matters in staging. We're going to look at how we're going to research our market. We're going to define a buyer type. We're going to align staging strategies to the buyer, and we're going to evaluate the effectiveness of staging. And then we're going to have some key takeaways. So why target demographics matter in staging? So staging isn't just about making a house look beautiful. It's about staging for your market, right? Again, you're as much as you are designing and making the space beautiful, you're also sort of creating an ad, just like a commercial that lures in people. So when they see that first photograph, they're like, oh, I could live there. When they walk into the space, you want them to have the same feeling. So you really have to look at who is the community that is coming to look at this space and what appeals to them so that you can create those hooks. So every color, furnishing, and accessory you choose should appeal to a specific type of buyer. So when you understand who you're designing for, you're able to highlight what matters the most. And we'll get into some of the specifics of that. You make more emotional connections that might drive them to want to make an offer. And then you're going to create spaces that feel move-in ready so that they can actually see themselves and their lifestyle in the space. So how you do this is you start to research the market. And just by going into sites that we've all heard of, Zillow, Redfin, Realtors.com, MLS listings, you can study those and study the area that you're looking at to see, like what are the typical prices in the neighborhood? How are they staging? Like, again, we talked about in that last lecture, market research, and how you look at what has happened and how it's done and how you can do it better. So again, don't start from scratch. Look at what's already happening in the neighborhood and decide how can you improve on that. And then just look at comments from agents. They'll leave sort of descriptive tags like perfect for families or ideal for work from home. And that sort of gives you an idea of the buyer that they have done research on and they think is looking for that type of property. So you want to analyze location factors. So demographics are going to shift depending on where the location is. So if you're in sort of an urban core, like Los Angeles, it could most likely be that you're marketing to young professionals. Usually the staging focus is on sort of either modern or minimal, and the spaces usually want to be flexible. If you're in a suburban neighborhood, then probably it's families and long-term buyers, so they're going to be there for a while, and they're really looking for comfort, storage, and durability. Um, if you have a luxury enclave, then they are probably very affluent, or they're executives or retirees. They're looking for high-end finishes and a space that's very sophisticated. If it's in a college area, it could be students, it could be investors that are wanting to rent to students, and they're usually pretty practical, low maintenance, smaller spaces. So also what you want to do is review census and market reports. The site that I found the most helpful is citydata.com, but there are a bunch of them. So you are going to be doing a project with to find some of this information. So you're welcome to use whatever sites that either you already use, or just a typical Google search and find some other places to find information. The one I sort of liked was citydata.com. It tells you age, income, family makeup, tells you all about the neighborhood, the schools. You can also look at real estate market reports from other brokers for who's buying and why. Obviously, the Google search. And I must admit, I didn't put it in the PowerPoint, but I actually did a little bit of Chat GPT, which for this particular assignment, I'm okay with you guys using. I felt Chat was really kind of helpful, and it also sent me to sites where I could get more specific information and delve down a little deeper. So, for your assignment, there's 3 parts, and for the first 2 parts, I'm actually open to Chat GPT, but we'll talk about that as we get into the assignment. So you're going to define your buyer. So you want to make a buyer profile, which is also called a buyer persona, or a target buyer profile, to understand who you're designing for, who you're marketing to, and who you're staging for. And you're looking for the why, right? So why would they buy this house? What makes this house special? And how are you going to emphasize those details? So it should caption both the demographic and the psychographic details that will help you tailor your space. So when you are staging to sell, a buyer profile needs to focus less on who the person is generally, and more on how they will emotionally and practically connect to the home. So again, it's about the why, like what makes this particular house special? How can you stage the home to make them actually see themselves in the space? What's the story you're trying to tell? So you want to present the property in a way that the buyer sees themselves living there. So it's a demographic snapshot, right? So you're looking at their age, how old are they? The household type, are they single? Are they professional? Are they young? Are they empty nesters? Are they retired? What's their occupation? So are they creative? Do they work from home? Do they go into the office 9 to 5? Do they go into the office from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.? What's their estimated income? Their family status? Are they single, married, kids? And then are they likely local versus a relocation buyer? So are they coming from somewhere locally and they're wanting to stay in that area, or are they coming from someplace far away? So you also want to look at their lifestyle and priorities, and a lot of this might be based on what you see also in the area. So you're going to define how they live, and what they value most. So what's their daily routine look like? Again, do they work from home, or do they entertain a lot, or is fitness important, family activities? So all of this you're sort of surmising from the area, right? So you're gonna, when you do your research, you're gonna find all of these sort of demographics, and from that you're gonna kind of see, what this neighborhood is about. Are there a lot of parks? So then, maybe you conclude that this is a great place for somebody who wants to go out and stay fit. Um, Maybe there's huge backyards, so maybe that indicates gardening. So these are things you're sort of extrapolating from the information that you're gathering. So you want to think about their values. Do they value family time again, or are they out and about? If they're in the city, maybe, and this is a smaller apartment, maybe their values are less about family and being home and more about being like in the art scene in New York. Right. So you're again extrapolating some of this information. Their interests: outdoor living, technology, art, or travel. Social habits. Are they very private people, meaning they're kind of staying home? Or are they very social? Are they formal versus relaxed? So you get to, again, based on the location, decide those sort of priorities. And is this a neighborhood where there's a lot of pets? So there's a neighborhood in Playa Vista that I actually really like. I think it's really intriguing, but it's all built up with these sort of huge condos, but each condo has its own specific interest. Like I think whoever planned the city was really smart, because one building is sort of a smaller spaces, like smaller condos, but it has a gym all on the top with this beautiful view, right? So I think it's kind of meant for the young starter home people, and they have the gym and whatever. There's another one that, has a little bit of a bigger space, and it has a pool in the middle, but then it also has community gardens on either end. So each apartment has its own little space where they can go out and garden, right? So that one's built for a certain type of population. There are like 4 dog parks in the area. There's kids parks. So the space itself is really, each building or each condo is very specific to a specific type of buyer. So that's the kind of thing you're looking for. So what are your potential buyers' motivations for buying? So are they upsizing because they're having a new baby, or are they downsizing because their kid just went off to college? So you're starting to think about, why are they doing this? So if you look in the area and it's really an area that has more seniors in it, you probably aren't going to stage a kids room, right? Maybe you stage some sort of home office or gym or something like that. Emotional motivation, security, freedom, peace of mind, family growth. So what's the emotional motivation? What are their aspirations? Is this their dream home, or is this their starter home, or is this their I'm done, not moving again home? Key decisions: a location, layout, schools, aesthetics. So these are characteristics that you're going to attribute to your potential buyer. So first time buyers will be much more budget cautious, right? So if you're looking in the area and these are all like smaller, like I said, this one building is smaller with the gym on top. So it kind of feels like maybe more first time buyer. Probably you're going to want to keep your materials and your finishes much more simple, a little more cost effective, because it looks then like someplace they would be. If it becomes too high end, it might sort of intimidate or turn them off or whatever. So young families, they need safety, they need function, they need storage, they need durability. So you're thinking about, what would a young family need when you're now starting to think about the durability of the materials and how you're going to stage. Empty nesters want comfort. That's getting ready to be me. Empty nesters want comfort and low maintenance. Absolutely. So how are you providing that in a staged space? Again, a luxury buyer is very image driven. So maybe there's some really high end Instagrammable moments in your space, some statement pieces that really say, hey, I have arrived, I am in luxury. An investor really seeks a quick turnover, right? So he's looking for super simple, let's get in, let's get out. And then a Gen Z millennial are trending towards working at home. So how do you make that an appropriate space? Like, does that second bedroom turn into a full-fledged office? So again, this is just a chart that I kind of liked, but it's basically the same information as what I just showed you in the other chart. So the psychographic profile. So I mentioned this in another slide, and I was like, I'm not going to define that, but it's coming a little bit later. So what that means is the psychological variables like attitudes, values, and lifestyle. So you're looking at all of those things, and again, determining what type of space does this demographic or this potential buyer want to be in. So you're classifying and studying the population based on these factors. So it deepens your insight as to the why. So questions you ask could be, do they entertain friends often? Do they work from home? Do they care more about luxury or practicality? Or are they downsizing or upgrading? So really what we've talked about, this just sort of reiterates that. But all of this is put under this big term of psychographic profile. So again, what type of buyer, the home style, the design preferences. So you're determining what is the look, what does it feel like, right? Depending on the profile that you come up with. What's their preferred architectural style? So we learned all about those. So are they going to be minimalist? Are they going to be modern? Are they going to be boho? What's the desired atmosphere? Is it bright, airy, cozy, inviting? Or is it warm, natural, maybe even a little moody? Color preferences. Typically, it's if we're doing a stage, kind of want it to be neutral, but then you can have those pops of colors that happen in accessories, in books, flowers, art, all of those things. So is that going to be really high contrast, or is it going to sort of rest on the wall and disappear? Did I forget anything? So must have features, open concept, home office, outdoor entertaining, luxury suites, furniture, decor style, kind of the same as the architecture is going to be minimalist, bohemian, classic, family friendly. So all of these decisions you're starting to make based on your buyer type and the neighborhood, right? So you may come up with a demographic that sounds like, oh, it sounds like they really love the beach because they're these casual people that love the outdoors. But if the home is not in the beach, don't do that, right? Because then it would feel sort of disingenuous. So you're not only looking at the buyer, but you're looking at the house itself. So if the house is a craftsman style, maybe you don't want to go super modern, right? Because then the two don't work. How do you sort of bridge that transition if, like in my area, it's actually a lot of the homes, because they are historical, are now being remodeled and people are moving and the restaurants are coming and all of that's happening. So a lot of the homes are being retrofitted and upgraded, but they're doing it in a way that still honors the historical architecture. So you want to make sure that you're honoring the neighborhood and the building. So you want to look at what's happening in the neighborhood, any amenities. Are there cafes, parks, schools, shopping, nightlife, right? So nightlife, if it's in the middle of the city, the interior space might feel really different than if it's next to a bunch of little cafes and parks. Typical resident profile, so again, who's living there, and then walkability. Like it feels like this house at the top, there's no place I can really walk. Whereas the house on the bottom may have a beach view, you can walk up and down, there may be shops, cafes, etc. So emotional selling points. So is the space going to be relaxed and grounded? Natural light, texture, sound, scent. All of those sensory elements are really super important in design. really when you walk into a space, it should affect your nervous system in a good way, right? So either if it's really uplifting and exciting, you might like get a little tingle and a little bit more energy. But if it's a space that's wanting you to calm down, it should like soothe your senses. And we do all of that through our five senses. Focal points in the area. So again, you can kind of decide what those focal points and important spaces are going to be based on your buyer type. And then lifestyle story that's going to be told. So it's really nice that there's some sort of continuous story that's told around the house that sort of links all the spaces together. That's ideal. A lot of times we are getting houses that aren't perfect, right? And so there's some things that you just are not able to fix. Like for instance, this corner on the counter, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite at all. But it, for the stage, we may not be able to correct that. But what do you think could make it better? I think if it were me, I would go ahead and paint the wall the same color as the tile, and then it would just sort of blend in, right? So it would still be there. You can't really do anything about it, but at least there wouldn't be a contrast. And even though right now that light blue, it's not a big contrast, but if the whole wall, like I actually matched the paint with the tile, at least it would blend and sort of go away, hopefully. So you have to start to look at, there are going to be some barriers, there are going to be some problem areas that you have to look at and figure out how to make them work. So marketing alignment. So again, when you're thinking about staging, it really is a marketing idea even more than it is design. So that first moment when you walk in, that first big image that goes out there to draw people in are super, super important. So I know I've said this before, but buyers first meet a home online typically, and within the first 7 seconds, they kind of know if they want to go visit. So it's that first 7 seconds, that first image that really draws them in. And when they walk into the space, it really better feel just like that image. So you want to ensure that your staging style, tone, and details directly support how the home will appear on photos, listings, and promotional material. The two must match. Targeting formats. So this is actually my friend Letty. She's one of my neighbors. She runs Aspire Real Estate. So she has a great Instagram page. So that's what made me think of this sort of marketing idea. So really what you need to also do is understand how your space is going to look in this type of profile. So do you have those sort of Instagrammable moments that you can take pictures to be sent off into the digital realm of Instagram and Zillow and TikTok and all of those places? So you're making sure that you really have those special moments that happen that you can photograph and then really recreate them when there is an open house and a walkthrough. So it's the hero shot. So that's the main image, the strongest image, and that's the one that goes out first. It's the one that makes them love the space, makes them want to come see the space. And so you need to make sure that somewhere in the space you have that hero. So even if the other spaces get staged less because of budget, you must have that one excellent space that is absolutely chef's kiss perfect. And then in the other spaces, you can have lifestyle vignettes, which are much smaller. They're styled to highlight emotion and personality, right? So again, it could be fruit baskets, it could be vegetables in the kitchen, wine glasses set on the table. So something that, again, lets whoever your buyer type know that they are, or that they can see themselves in this property. Um, Oh, and then function. So if you have a space, especially if it's an odd space and it's kind of like, how would I use that? It's great if you as the designer can give it some sort of function. So whether or not you put books in there with a shelf and a chair, so it becomes a reading nook or whatever it is, if you're able to clarify how a space can be used, that will also help a buyer say, oh, that's a great little space for XYZ. So this kind of goes back over all the different buyer types, so I won't do it again. Just know that each when you're doing your research, because you are going to define a buyer type for me, you should know which category they fall into, and then make sure that you are creating a profile that represents who they are and their interests. So you're setting a tone for your marketing visuals. So that really represents personality and mood. And you're conveying this visually and verbally. So you also want to start to come up with little key phrases that describe your space. So if you have decided that your space is sort of this fresh, open, springtime looking space, then maybe as you're marketing and you're helping the real estate agent, maybe it's crisp, clean design, ready for your personal touch. Or if it's sophisticated, maybe the catchphrase or the marketing example is modern elegance in every detail, right? So again, you're kind of coming up with a phrase that expounds on what the space feels like. So you are in your assignment going to create a buyer summary paragraph. So basically, once you have created a description for your buyer, you're going to come up with a narrative, and you're going to do that using all of the information you collect from your buyer profile form. Okay, so this is my example, so you can always come back and look at this one. But what I ended up after I did my bio, my what I named my family, the family type or biotype is the modern family nesters, because they are a growing family. They're very earthy and family connected. They do things together. And so I gave them sort of it's a brief description and then the staging strategy. So I'm going to highlight versatile family zones. So those zones that share space, cozy textures, subtle lifestyle touches that tell a story, happy, balanced home. Maybe one of the kids' spaces has that little teepee in it. Maybe it doesn't even have a bed, right? Maybe the budget is low, so it's just a little teepee, pillows. So that's how I'm coming up with my buyer type. So layout strategies, again, visual and spatial choices. So family buyers might be an open plan with a dining connection, whereas professionals really might need a workspace that's integrated, and retirees might just really want a nice cushy sofa. So again, you're thinking about who you are staging for. So again, emotional connection, small lifestyle clues that suggest how life happens here. So you're selling a feeling. So what these vignettes, and again, my face is in the way, my apologies. So I'm looking at this beautiful vignette. I can see myself on a Sunday morning, well, maybe not morning, maybe afternoon, having a glass of wine with the grapes and the bowls of fruit, looking out the window, having a conversation with a friend. So you're really sort of creating the scene of how lovely, lovely, lovely this space is. Maybe it's coffee mugs, maybe it's some art, with paint set on a table. So you're sort of creating this cozy vibe. Maybe it's even a picnic basket that's set out on the grass outside to show what a beautiful space. That actually the outside can act as much as of a room, exterior space, as the interior. So after designing, and just like when we talked about going back and assessing the job you did and making sure that you do it better the next time, whatever is maybe not working the best. You're going to do the exact same thing. You always want to make sure you step back after you've staged and really look at what you've done. If you have the next day to do that, that's great. A lot of times you won't, but definitely at the end of the day, go through, take your own pictures. Just so you can kind of see it and see how it's looking in the frame for marketing purposes. When you have it professionally photographed, though, you may have to still make some adjustments, but you really sort of want to step back, remove yourself a little bit, and walk through the space as if you haven't seen it before, so that you're looking at it hopefully the way that a buyer will look at it. So again, step back, take a moment, assess what you've done. So design attracts the eye, staging captures the heart. So there were a lot of good quotes. And I think that's a good one too to end with. Because again, design can be super beautiful, but if it's not your style, it won't necessarily connect with you, right? And so there are a lot of things, there's a lot of art, there are a lot of spaces that I think are really beautiful, but I wouldn't necessarily want to live there or even stay there for a long time. When you're staging, you're trying to do the opposite. You're really trying to create a space that people want to stop and just be, right? They feel like they're home. And so that's where, again, these special vignettes happen, and you have to know who your buyer is in order to make those special. So you definitely have to do the research, and I guess that's it. And I like these pictures. So again, I talked about that teepee idea. There may be, again, you won't always have the super high budget, but if you have a neighborhood that has a lot of families, and you know that families are moving here, the school districts are great, the parks are great, then maybe just a teepee in a room tells the story, right? It's super easy, super quick. However, this setup, the teepee setup, may not be great for this couple, right? Because they feel like a power couple on the move, working, doing their thing in the city, right? So maybe the teepee isn't right for that couple, but the martini glass in the morning might be. So, yeah, knowing who is looking at the space, who your buyer is super important. So I leave you with that. I'm going to give you this quote one more time because I love it so much. So design attracts the eye, but staging captures the heart. All right, I'll see you guys in the assignment.